It was once a no man's land, a stretch of shallow water and flats of mud. This was Boston's Back Bay before its creation. It would become a land reclaimed from the sea to spawn a life of its own, a life of ideas, inspiration, and enlightenment. The filling in of the Back Bay began laying the groundwork for the cultural haven it would soon become, and by the turn of the century, the area was fast becoming responsible for Boston's designation as the Athens of America. And the heart and soul of this intellectual utopia was, and still is, the Boston Public Library. Hello, I'm Julie Harris. Imagine, this beautiful building is now 100 years old and showing its age remarkably well, don't you think? The glorious renovation now underway is certainly one reason to celebrate the library's first 100 years in Copley Square, but not the only one. We all share in this commemoration, not only of the library itself, but of all it touches, the 2 million people who enter its doorways every year, and many other cultural institutions of Boston with which the library is connected, like so many spokes in a wheel. Tonight we celebrate the spirit of inspiration and ideas that makes Boston such a unique and treasured city. The following are just some of the institutions that contribute to this spirit, all having a link to the Palace of the People. Had it not outgrown its original home, Boston's Museum of Fine Arts would today be the library's next-door neighbor, in this ornate Gothic structure that once stood at the corner of Dartmouth and St. James Streets in Copley Square, and remained here for 33 years before moving to its present location in 1907. Today, the museum and the library remain united in spirit and in the works of a prominent artist, John Singer Sargent. Though best known for his portraits of the 19th century rich and famous, Sargent's murals are his enduring legacy to Boston's cultural renaissance. In the library's second-floor loggia, known as Sargent Hall, his series of panels on the history of world religion is at once compelling and controversial. And the origins of the mural, a series of sketches and studies, is on display at the Museum of Fine Arts, providing a rare glimpse of the creative process in action. And Sargent's murals in the museum's Great Rotunda, a tribute to knowledge and imagination, are truly breathtaking. And one of the museum's closest neighbors happens to be another world-class repository of art, the Gardner Museum. Though a museum in name, it looks and feels more like the home it was to one of Boston's most original and intriguing personalities, Isabella Stewart Gardner. The Gardners' link to the library also can be traced to John Singer Sargent, friend and advisor to Mrs. Gardner. One of his better-known works was completed right here in the museum's Gothic room in 1903. A photographer captured one fleeting moment of this long sitting. The resulting portrait of Gretchen Fisk Warren and her daughter Rachel now hangs nearby at the Museum of Fine Arts.
Thank you.
Besides its collection of over 6.1 million volumes and its impressive collection of art, the Boston Public Library houses many hidden treasures as well. You just have to know where to look. Its rare book department is second to none. Included in the collection are original versions of Molière, Defoe, and a Shakespeare folio dated 1633. And deep in the bowels of the McKim building lies some of history's most important archives, providing a direct connection with a number of Boston's cultural establishments. The archives of William Lloyd Garrison provide one such link to the Museum of Afro-American History. The abolitionist movement was born in the early 19th century at this modest structure on Joy Street, the African Meeting House. It was built entirely by African-American artisans in 1806 for what was then the largest free black population in the country, comprising much of Boston's North End and Beacon Hill. Today, the African Meeting House is recognized as the oldest standing black church building in the United States. After serving as a Jewish synagogue throughout most of the 1900s, it was brought back in the early 70s and became the new home of the Museum of Afro-American History. Found in the Garrison collection are copies of his abolitionist newspaper, The Liberator, as well as other artifacts, including an old lock and key that once held and later freed Southern slaves. Today, we know it as Louis. Before that, it was Bonwit Teller. But once upon a time, this building on Berkeley Street was not a house of fashion. For nearly a century, it was the gateway to Back Bay culture, the Museum of Natural History. In 1951, the museum moved its diverse dioramas to a new site on the Charles River Dam, and Boston's Museum of Science was born. Vestiges of those prehistoric panoramas and wildlife scenes still remain, but today the Science Museum is so much more. The emphasis is on interaction, making learning fun. With an ever-changing series of special exhibits and updated shows in the spectacular Omni Theater, the museum keeps pace with the world around us. Perhaps more than any other Boston cultural institution, the Science Museum must appreciate the past while anticipating the future. One of Boston's most renowned cultural treasures is its symphony orchestra. Founded in 1881 by businessman and philanthropist Henry Lee Higginson, it has achieved international status as one of the finest musical organizations anywhere. And so it is fitting that the orchestra's home is considered one of the most acoustically perfect performance spaces in the world. Symphony Hall opened in October of 1900 at the height of the Back Bay cultural explosion we celebrate tonight. Still basking in critical acclaim for his design of the library, architect Charles Follen McKim was a hot commodity, and in Symphony Hall he had created another gem. Besides sharing the same architect, the symphony and the library have something else in common: materials relating to the Boston Symphony Orchestra and the Boston Pops. Items ranging from pictures of past and present conductors to manuscripts and more can be found in the library's music room. Items that just might enhance your next evening at Symphony or Pops. So close and yet so far. From this practice room at the New England Conservatory, Symphony Hall is in plain view, a constant reminder of where a life devoted to music might lead. Founded in 1867, America's oldest independent conservatory moved to the Back Bay in 1902. Today, it is regarded as one of the premier music schools in the world, with over 750 students representing 35 states and 22 countries. Its own orchestra is one of over 80 performing ensembles at the school. They play regularly at another Boston acoustical wonder, Jordan Hall, quite literally the centerpiece of the conservatory building. And greeting everyone who enters the hall is the famous statue of Beethoven, commissioned by the Handel and Haydn Society exactly 100 years ago, and originally housed in the Boston Public Library. Boston's Handel and Haydn Society, a Jordan Hall fixture, has the distinction of being the oldest active arts group in the United States. Founded in 1815, this distinguished chorus and period orchestra performs music of the Baroque and classical eras, using instruments and techniques of the age. The Handel and Haydn Society's archives are stored at the Boston Public Library. They include a treasure trove of memorabilia, including original manuscripts, photographs, the Society's deed, and some very early tickets. There is also an old scrapbook, wonderfully intact, though yellowed with age, of original H&H programs and reviews. The Society gave the first United States performance of Handel's Messiah in 1818, and since 1854, it has been performing it annually. It is one of Boston's most enduring holiday traditions. Another firmly established holiday tradition belongs to the Boston Ballet. Its yearly presentation of the Nutcracker is one of the area's most eagerly anticipated wintertime events, attracting more theatergoers than any other Nutcracker in the world. Each year the production gets grander as the dancing remains superb. And this year, look for a brand new set to be unveiled. Indeed, countless people see the Nutcracker again for the first time, year after year. And if ballet is your passion, the Boston Public Library features the original drawings of great ballet set designer Alexander Benoit in its rare book collection. Though a relative newcomer to the Boston cultural scene, the ballet has quickly established itself as one of its acclaimed jewels. The Boston Latin School, founded in 1635, is the oldest public school with a continuous existence in the United States. For over 350 years, it has remained true to its original purpose, to teach and nurture young people intellectually and morally. The archives of the Boston Latin School reside at the library as well, offering a glimpse of academic life at what was then an all-boys school. Female parts in the school play were performed by boys in disguise. Those dresses and tresses are fairly convincing upon first look. Boston Latin went co-ed in 1972. Some things do change for the better. And what do the Red Sox and the library have in common? More than you might think. On many a fine spring afternoon years ago, a young Boston Latin student who would one day become director of the Boston Public Library, Arthur Curley, would be among the opening day Fenway faithful. The Red Sox and the library also share a magic number, 2 million. That's the average attendance figure of each institution in a single season. There are numerous photographs on hand at the library capturing immortal Red Sox players and plays alike. And so as we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the opening of the Boston Public Library's historic McKim building, we also pay tribute to the many fine institutions which make Boston unique among cities. Just as a century ago, people like Joshua Bates, Henry Lee Higginson, Charles Tickner, and Isabella Stewart Gardner joined together to make these institutions a reality. It's up to all of us to keep their spirit alive. Though this building may be 100 years old, the treasures found within its walls represent centuries of information, ideas, and history, a wealth of knowledge available for the asking. Happy birthday, Boston Public Library. Here's to another 100 years.